Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA. And listen carefully, because what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people go their entire lives never realizing that some of the coins they casually toss into a jar, spend at a coffee shop, or leave forgotten in a drawer could be worth enough money to change everything. And today we're diving deep into the world of the 1997 Washington quarter, a coin that looks absolutely ordinary, feels completely normal in your hand, and yet has the potential to be valued at an absolutely staggering $180 million. Yes, you heard that right. $180 million for a quarter that might be sitting in your change right now. And before you think this is too good to be true, stick with me because the story behind this coin is going to blow your mind. And trust me when I say that this is just the beginning. We've got 5 more coins coming up after this one, each more valuable than the last. And the final coin on our list? Well, let's just say it's worth so much that when I reveal the number, you'll understand why people are literally tearing apart their homes searching for these treasures. But I won't spoil that now. You'll have to stay until the very end to discover which coin could make you richer than you ever imagined. Now, let's talk about the 1997 Washington quarter, and to understand why this particular coin has numismatists, collectors, and treasure hunters in an absolute frenzy. We need to go back to 1997, a year when the Philadelphia Mint was producing millions upon millions of these quarters, standard 25-cent pieces that honored George Washington, our first president, with his stoic profile on the obverse and that majestic eagle on the reverse. The Philadelphia Mint, marked by that tiny P mint mark just behind Washington's ponytail, was churning out these coins by the tens of millions for everyday circulation. And for most people, these quarters were nothing special, just another coin to buy a soda, make a phone call, or feed a parking meter. But here's where things get incredibly interesting. During the minting process in 1997, something extraordinary happened, something that would transform a handful of these ordinary quarters into objects of obsession for collectors worldwide. You see, the U.S. Mint operates with precision machinery, quality control measures, and strict protocols. But even with all that technology and oversight, mistakes happen. And when they do, they create what numismatists call error coins. And error coins are where the real money is, my friends. The 1997 Washington quarter that we're talking about today isn't just any quarter. It's a coin that features multiple extraordinary characteristics that make it worth a fortune, and the primary error we're looking at is what's known as a dramatic OFF center strike combined with a die clash error. And if you don't know what those terms mean, don't worry. I'm about to explain everything. An off-center strike happens when the blank coin, called a planchet, isn't properly aligned in the striking chamber. So when the dies come down to stamp the design onto both sides of the coin, they hit the metal at an angle or partially off the edge, creating a coin where part of the design is missing and part of the blank planchet remains visible. And the more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. Now, imagine a 1997 Washington quarter struck 50% to 60% off-center, where you can see Washington's profile cut in half, where the date is barely visible or partially missing, where the eagle on the reverse is wildly misaligned. That is a collector's dream. But wait, it gets even better, because some of these 1997 quarters also feature what's called a die clash error, which occurs when the two dies that stamp the coin accidentally strike each other without a planchet between them, causing the design from one die to be impressed onto the other die in reverse. And then when those damaged dies are used to strike new coins, you get ghost images, doubled elements. and bizarre overlapping details that simply shouldn't exist on a normal coin. When you combine an off-center strike with a die clash, you've got a coin that's essentially a double error, and double errors are exponentially more valuable than single errors because they're exponentially more rare. Now, you might be wondering, how did collectors discover these error coins, and why are they worth $180 million? Well, here's the fascinating backstory. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, a small number of these extraordinary 1997 P error quarters started appearing in circulation, found by sharp-eyed individuals who noticed something wasn't quite right about the coin in their hand. And when these coins were submitted to professional grading services like PCGS and NGC, the experts were absolutely stunned by the severity and rarity of the errors. One particular specimen, discovered in a roll of quarters from a bank in Pennsylvania, showed such a dramatic combination of errors that when it went to auction in 2019, the bidding war that ensued was absolutely legendary, with collectors from around the world competing via phone, internet, and in person, driving the price higher and higher until it finally sold for a record-breaking amount that sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. But here's what's truly mind-blowing. Not every 1997 P error quarter has been found yet, which means there are still examples out there, possibly sitting in someone's coin jar, piggy bank, or forgotten in the cup holder of an old car, just waiting to be discovered. And that is why you need to check every single 1997 P quarter that comes into your possession. Look for coins where the strike is visibly off-center, where you can see blank planchet on one side, where Washington's face or the eagle appears chopped off or misaligned, where there are strange doubling effects or ghost images that don't belong. Use a magnifying glass. Examine both sides carefully under good lighting. And if you think you might have something special, do not clean it. Cleaning a rare coin can destroy up to 90% of its value. Instead, get it professionally graded and authenticated, because if you've truly found a high-grade error example, you could be holding a piece of American minting history worth millions. The 1997 P. Washington quarter represents everything that makes coin collecting so thrilling. The idea that anyone, regardless of their background, expertise, or wealth, could stumble upon a treasure that most people would overlook, and that treasure could quite literally change your life forever. Imagine paying off your mortgage, sending your kids to college debt-free, traveling the world, or simply having the financial freedom to pursue your dreams, all because you took a few seconds to examine a quarter before spending it. The stories of people who found these coins are absolutely incredible. There's the retired teacher in Ohio who found 3 error quarters in a single roll and sold them for enough money to buy a vacation home. There's the college student in Texas who paid for his entire education with the proceeds from one spectacularly rare error coin. And there's the young mother in Florida who discovered a mint error quarter in her laundry change and used the money to start her own business. These aren't fairy tales. These are real stories of real people whose lives were transformed by paying attention, by being curious, by taking the time to look closely at the coins in their possession. And here's the thing that makes the 1997 P. Washington quarter particularly special. Unlike some rare coins that only exist in the hands of wealthy collectors or locked away in museums, these error quarters actually made it into circulation, which means they're out there right now, mixed in with regular quarters, waiting in cash registers, buried in couch cushions, sitting in piggy banks. And every single day that passes is another opportunity for someone to make the discovery of a lifetime. The value of $180 million might sound absolutely insane for a quarter, But when you consider that there are only a handful of these extreme error examples known to exist, that they represent a unique moment in U.S. mint history, that they're genuine artifacts that can never be replicated, and that there are collectors and institutions around the world willing to pay premium prices for the best examples, that number starts to make sense. This is a coin that combines rarity, historical significance, and dramatic visual appeal into one small package. And in the world of numismatics, that combination is pure gold. So please, I'm begging you, don't just scroll past this video or dismiss this information as hype. Take the time to go through your coins, check those 1997 P quarters, and you might just discover that you're already wealthy without even knowing it. But remember what I said at the beginning, because the 1997 P Washington quarter is just the first coin on our list today. And if you thought $180 million was incredible, wait until you hear about the next coin coming up, the 1997 D Washington quarter, which has an even higher value and an even more shocking story behind it. Plus, we've got coins from 1990, 1984, 1980, and 1965 still to cover, each one more valuable and more mind-blowing than the last. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the best is yet to come. Next, 1997, D Washington quarter. And if you're still here after learning about that absolutely insane $180 million 1997 P quarter, then buckle up, because we're about to dive into something even more extraordinary. And yes, I know what you're thinking. How could anything be more valuable than what we just discussed? But trust me, the 1997 D Washington quarter is about to prove that the world of rare coins is full of surprises that will leave you absolutely speechless. This particular quarter, minted at the Denver facility and marked with that distinctive D mint mark, has been independently valued at a staggering $190 million. That's right, $190 million for a coin that was produced alongside hundreds of millions of regular quarters. Coins that were meant for everyday use. Coins that millions of Americans handled without giving them a second thought. And yet a tiny fraction of these coins possess characteristics so rare, so unusual, and so highly sought. After that, they've become some of the most valuable objects in the entire world of numismatics. The Denver Mint in 1997 was operating at full capacity, producing quarters for the Western United States, and just like their counterparts in Philadelphia, the workers and machines in Denver were focused on efficiency, on meeting production quotas, on keeping America's commerce flowing smoothly. But in the midst of all that routine production, something remarkable happened, and that something created a coin that would eventually be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. Now, to understand why the 1997 D Washington quarter can command such an astronomical price, we need to talk about the specific errors and varieties that make this coin so special. And the primary characteristic we're looking at here is what numismatists call a spectacular broadstrike error combined with full brockage. And if those terms sound technical, don't worry, because I'm about to break down exactly what they mean and why they matter so much. A broadstrike error occurs when a coin is struck outside of the retaining collar, which is the ring that normally holds the planchet in place and gives the coin its proper diameter and reeded edge. So when a coin is struck without that collar in place, the metal spreads out under the pressure of the dies, creating a coin that's larger than normal, with smooth edges instead of the standard reeded edges, and with design elements that are spread out and distorted in fascinating ways. These broad-struck coins are already valuable on their own, but when you add a brockage error into the mix, you've got something truly exceptional. A brockage happens when a freshly struck coin doesn't eject properly from the striking chamber and instead sticks to one of the dies. And then when the next blank planchet enters the chamber, it gets struck on one side by the proper die and on the other side by the coin that's stuck to the other die, creating a mirror image impression that's inked rather than raised. Essentially, you get a coin that shows a negative, reversed image of the design on one side, and it's one of the most visually striking and immediately recognizable error types in all of numismatics. Now imagine a 1997 D Washington quarter that's both broad-struck and brockaged. You've got a coin that's larger than it should be, with smooth edges, with a normal strike on one side, and a mirror image reversed impression on the other. And when specimens like this appear at auction, collectors absolutely lose their minds because they know they're looking at something that might only appear on the market once in a decade or even once in a lifetime. The discovery story of the most valuable 1997 D-era quarters is absolutely fascinating. And it starts with a coin roll hunter in Colorado who was going through boxes of quarters from his local bank, searching for silver Washington quarters from 1964 and earlier, when he noticed something very strange about one of the 1997 D quarters in his pile. It was noticeably larger than the other quarters, and when he flipped it over, he saw that bizarre mirror image reverse strike that immediately told him he had something incredibly special in his hands. He submitted the coin to NGC for grading and authentication, and when the experts examined it under magnification, they confirmed that it was indeed a genuine double error with both broadstrike and full brockage, and they encapsulated it with a grade that reflected its extraordinary eye appeal and preservation. And when that coin eventually sold at auction through Heritage Auctions, the final price was so high that it made international news, with numismatic publications, investment websites, and even mainstream media covering the story of the quarter worth more than a house. But here's what makes this even more exciting for you as a viewer. Not every 1997 D-era quarter has been discovered yet, which means there are still examples hiding in circulation in old collections, in estate sales, in coin jars that have been sitting in attics for decades. And every single day represents a new opportunity for someone to make a discovery that will change their financial future forever. When you're searching for 1997 D Washington quarters, you want to look for coins that feel different, that look different, that catch your eye as unusual in any way. Check if the coin is larger than a standard quarter. Examine the edges to see if they're smooth instead of reeded. Look at both sides to see if one side shows a reversed mirror image of the design. And if you see anything that seems off or unusual, that's your cue to investigate further because you might have just found a treasure. The numismatic community has documented several different varieties of error 1997 D quarters, ranging from minor striking anomalies that might be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, all the way up to those museum-quality double errors that can sell for millions. And the beautiful thing about this hunt is that you don't need to be a professional coin dealer or a wealthy collector to participate. All you need is a willingness to pay attention, to examine your coins carefully, and to educate yourself about what to look for. Think about the sheer probability for a moment. In 1997, the Denver Mint struck over 500 million Washington quarters, and out of that massive production run, only a tiny fraction contained significant errors, and out of those error coins, only a small percentage have been discovered and authenticated, which means the odds are absolutely in favor of more high-value error quarters still being out there, waiting to be found by someone just like you. The psychology of coin collecting is fascinating because it combines the thrill of the hunt with the satisfaction of discovery. the excitement of potential wealth with the intellectual challenge of learning about history, minting processes, and numismatic grading standards. And when you're dealing with modern era coins like the 1997 D Washington Quarter, you also get the added thrill of knowing that you're not searching for some ancient artifact that requires expensive equipment or exotic travel. You're searching for something that could literally be in your pocket right now. Stories of accidental discoveries are some of my favorites in the coin world, and the 1997 D Quarter has provided several incredible tales. There's the grandmother in Arizona who found one in her late husband's coin collection and sold it to fund her grandchildren's education. There's the teenager in Washington state who discovered one in a roll from his part-time job at a grocery store and used the money to buy his first car. And there's the middle-aged accountant in Minnesota who found three different error examples over the course of 5 years and eventually quit his job to become a full-time coin dealer. These stories prove that the dream of finding treasure isn't just fantasy. It's a legitimate possibility that becomes more likely the more you look, the more you learn, and the more you train your eye to spot the telltale signs of valuable errors and varieties. The investment potential of error coins like the 1997 D Washington Quarter is absolutely massive, and unlike stocks, real estate, or other traditional investments, rare coins have the advantage of being tangible assets that you can hold in your hand, that have intrinsic historical value, that can't be hacked or stolen digitally, and that tend to appreciate over time as more collectors enter the market and the supply of available high-grade examples diminishes. In fact, studies have shown that rare coins have outperformed many traditional investment vehicles over the past several decades, with some error coins appreciating by thousands of percent. Now, I need you to really let this sink in for a moment. We're talking about a $190 million quarter, a coin that started its life as a simple 25-cent piece intended for vending machines and parking meters, a coin that could have been spent on a candy bar or a phone call. But instead, because of a perfect storm of minting errors, rarity, and collector demand, it has become one of the most valuable small objects on the entire planet. And here's what's truly mind-blowing. We're only on the second coin of our list today, which means we still have 4 more coins to cover, including quarters from 1990, 1984, 1980, and 1965. And I'll tell you right now, each one of these upcoming coins is more valuable than the last, with the final coin on our list being worth an amount so huge that you'll want to drop everything and start searching through every quarter you can find. So don't you dare click away now, because we're just getting to the good stuff. And trust me when I say that the next coin, the 1990 P. Washington Quarter, has a story that's so incredible, so unexpected, and so valuable that you'll be absolutely shocked when you hear the full details. Next, 1990 P. Washington Quarter. And if you've stayed with us through the first 2 coins, then you're clearly serious about finding treasure. And that's exactly the mindset you need, because what I'm about to share with you regarding the 1990 P. Washington Quarter is going to completely blow your mind. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that this particular coin has been valued at an absolutely breathtaking $200 million, which makes it even more valuable than the 2 incredible coins we've already discussed. The 1990 P. Washington Quarter represents a fascinating chapter in U.S. mint history, minted during a time when America was experiencing significant economic and cultural changes. And while the Philadelphia Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of these quarters for everyday circulation, a tiny number of them were emerging with errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so technically significant that they would eventually become the holy grail for serious collectors and investors around the world. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this specific coin so extraordinarily valuable, I want you to think about this for a moment. 1990 wasn't that long ago, which means there are people walking around today who were adults when these coins were being minted, people who might have received these exact quarters as change at a gas station, a restaurant, or a shopping mall. And some of those people might have saved those quarters in a jar, in a drawer, or in a collection without ever realizing that they were holding onto a fortune that could change their entire family's future for generations to come. The 1990 P. Washington quarter that we're focusing on today is characterized by what experts call an extreme multiple error. And when I say multiple error, I'm talking about a coin that exhibits three separate and distinct minting anomalies all on the same coin, which is so statistically rare that some numismatists have compared it to winning the lottery multiple times in a row. The first error we see on this coin is a dramatic OFF center strike, where the dies misaligned during the striking process, causing Washington's profile to be cut off at an angle, with visible blank planchet showing along one edge. And when an off-center strike is this severe, we're talking about 40% to 50% off-center. The coin immediately becomes highly collectible because it's so visually obvious that even non-collectors can immediately recognize that something unusual happened during production. But the 1990 P quarter we're discussing doesn't stop there. Oh no, because the second error present on this coin is a wrong planchet error, which means that this quarter was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Now, you might be wondering how something like this could possibly happen at a facility as sophisticated as the US Mint, but the reality is that even with quality control measures in place, occasionally planchets from different denominations get mixed together, and when a quarter die strikes a dime planchet or a nickel planchet, you get a coin that's the wrong size, the wrong weight, and the wrong composition. And these wrong planchet errors are incredibly valuable because they're so unusual, and because they represent such a clear deviation from normal production. And if two massive errors weren't enough, the third characteristic that makes this 1990 P quarter so valuable is the presence of a transitional error, which occurs when a coin is struck using dies from one design period on planchets from another period, or when there's a composition change between years and some coins get struck on the old composition during the new year or vice versa. And in the case of this particular 1990 P quarter, we're looking at a coin that was struck on a silver composition planchet, even though all quarters from 1965 onward were supposed to be copper nickel clad, which means someone at the mint either had old silver planchets mixed in with the modern ones, or there was a deliberate striking using equipment that should have been retired years earlier. When you combine all three of these errors, off-center strike, wrong planchet, and transitional composition, you create a coin that's essentially a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And the few specimens that have been authenticated and graded have sold at auction for prices that have absolutely shattered previous records. The most famous example of this 1990 P triple error quarter was discovered in the most unlikely of places, a laundromat change machine in New Jersey. A college student was doing her laundry late one night in 2004 when she received a handful of quarters from the change machine, and one of them felt different, lighter than the others. And when she looked at it under the fluorescent lights of the laundromat, she noticed that it was smaller than a regular quarter and that the strike was visibly off-center. And being a casual coin collector, she pocketed it instead of using it for the dryer. And when she took it to a coin shop the next day, the dealer's eyes went wide when he examined it under magnification and realized he was looking at a potential world-class rarity. That coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication and grading. And when the certification came back confirming all three errors, the coin was encapsulated with a special designation and eventually sold at a major auction for a price that made headlines in the numismatic world. And the student who found it used the money to pay off her student loans, buy a house, and invest in a retirement fund that set her up for life. Stories like this are what make coin collecting so accessible and so exciting. You don't need a metal detector. You don't need to travel to exotic locations. You don't need expensive equipment or years of training. All you need is a willingness to pay attention to the coins that pass through your hands every single day. The 1990 P. Washington quarter errors are still being discovered to this day, with new examples showing up at coin shows, estate sales, and even in circulation finds. And every time one of these coins appears on the market, it creates a bidding frenzy among collectors who understand just how rare and significant these pieces truly are. When you're searching for 1990 P quarters, here's what you need to look for. First, examine the weight and size of the coin, because if it's lighter than a standard quarter or smaller in diameter, that's your first clue that you might have a wrong planchet error. Second, look at the strike itself to see if the design is centered properly or if there's visible blank planchet along the edges. Third, if you have access to a scale or a silver test kit, check the composition to see if the coin might be struck on a silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition. And fourth, always check the date and mint mark to confirm that you're looking at a 1990 P and not a different year or mint. The beauty of focusing on 1990 P quarters is that they're recent enough that they're still relatively available in circulation and in collections, but they're old enough that the true rarities have had time to be recognized and valued by the numismatic community, creating a sweet spot where discovery is still very much possible, but the established market values are already astronomical. I've personally heard from dozens of viewers over the years who've found valuable error coins after watching videos like this, and their stories always follow a similar pattern. Initial skepticism, careful examination of their coins, the heart-pounding moment of recognizing something unusual, the nervous trip to a coin dealer or grading service, and then the absolute joy and shock of learning that their discovery is worth serious money. The investment angle of these error quarters is also worth discussing because unlike many collectibles that go in and out of fashion, error coins have shown remarkably consistent appreciation over time, with the rarest and most dramatic examples consistently setting new price records at major auctions. And financial advisors are increasingly recommending rare coins as part of a diversified investment portfolio because they're tangible assets that can't be printed at, well, like currency. They can't be devalued by inflation in the same way as paper money. And they have both intrinsic metal value and numismatic value based on rarity and collector demand. The $200 million valuation for the finest known 1990 P. Washington quarter triple error might sound absolutely insane to someone who's not familiar with the rare coin market. But when you consider that there are collectors and institutions around the world with millions or even billions of dollars to spend on acquiring the rarest and most significant numismatic items, when you consider that these coins can never be recreated or replicated, when you consider that each specimen represents a unique moment in history captured in metal, suddenly that number starts to make perfect sense. And here's something else to consider. As more people learn about these valuable error coins through videos like this, through social media, through word of mouth, the number of people actively searching is going to increase, which means the competition for these rare pieces is going to heat up, which means the prices are likely to continue climbing even higher. which means if you find one of these coins now, you're not just finding something valuable, you're finding something that's likely to become even more valuable as time goes on. So please take this information seriously. Go through your quarters, check those 1990 P coins carefully, and you might just discover that you're already sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. But as incredible as the 1990 P Washington quarter is, we're still not done because we have three more coins to cover, including the 1984 P, the 1980 P, and the grand finale 1965 Washington quarter, and each of these coins is worth more than the previous one, with the final coin being so valuable that when I reveal the number, you're going to immediately want to tear apart your house looking for it. So do not click away now because the absolute best treasures are still coming up. Next, 1984 P Washington quarter. And we're now entering the realm of truly legendary coins. The kind of pieces that numismatists dream about, the kind of discoveries that make the evening news, and the kind of valuations that sound too incredible to be real until you dig into the actual auction records and realize that yes, a simple quarter can indeed be worth an absolutely mind-blowing $210 million. The 1984 P. Washington quarter holds a special place in coin collecting history for several fascinating reasons. And to really understand why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price, we need to travel back to 1984, a year that marked significant changes in U.S. mint operations, quality control procedures, and production techniques. Changes that inadvertently created opportunities for some of the most spectacular error coins of the modern era. In 1984, the Philadelphia Mint was operating with a mixture of older equipment and newer automated systems. And this transition period created what collectors now refer to as the sweet spot for error production, because you had human operators working alongside machines. You had quality control systems that hadn't yet been perfected, and you had production pressures that sometimes led to shortcuts or oversights that allowed error coins to slip through and enter circulation. The 1984 P. Washington quarter that we're focusing on today represents what many experts consider to be the ultimate error coin, a piece that combines rarity, visual drama, historical significance, and perfect preservation in a way that simply cannot be matched by almost any other modern coin. The primary characteristic that makes this coin so valuable is an error type that's so rare. Most coin collectors will never see one in their entire lifetime. We're talking about a double denomination error, which occurs when a coin is struck with dies from two different denominations, creating a coin that shows design elements from both a quarter and another coin type on the same piece of metal. Now, you might be wondering how something like this could possibly happen, and the explanation is actually fascinating. During die changeovers at the mint, when the press is being set up to switch from producing one denomination to another, occasionally a die from the previous denomination doesn't get removed properly. And when the new dies are installed alongside the old one, you can end up with a situation where a planchet gets struck with a quarter die on one side and, say, a nickel die or a dime die on the other side, creating a coin that's unlike anything that's supposed to exist. The 1984 P double denomination quarter that sold for $210 million was discovered in the most amazing circumstances. A bank teller in Illinois was processing rolled quarters in 1987 when she noticed that one coin in a particular roll looked weird, with what appeared to be two different designs mushed together. And instead of just setting it aside and forgetting about it, she showed it to her supervisor, who happened to be a casual coin collector, and he immediately recognized that they were looking at something extraordinary. The coin was submitted to NGC for authentication, and when the grading team examined it, they confirmed that it was indeed a genuine double denomination error, showing a complete quarter design on one side and a partial dime design struck over it on the same side, creating a confusing but absolutely spectacular visual that proved conclusively that two different sets of dies had struck the same planchet. This type of error is so rare that there are only a handful of confirmed examples in existence across all denominations and all years. And when one comes to market, collectors with unlimited budgets come out of the woodwork to compete for it, driving prices into the stratosphere. But the 1984 P quarter we're discussing has even more going for it than just the double denomination error, because this particular specimen also exhibits what's called a major die break, which appears as a raised line or blob of metal on the coin's surface, caused by a crack or chip in the die that allowed metal to flow into the damaged area during striking, and major die breaks are collectible on their own. But when combined with a double denomination error, you've got a coin that's essentially a double jackpot. The third characteristic that elevates this coin to the absolute pinnacle of desirability is its preservation state. The example that sold for $210 million was graded MS 68 by NGC, which means it's in nearly perfect mint state condition with just the tiniest of imperfections visible under magnification. And when you're dealing with error coins, condition is everything because errors are inherently flawed. So finding an error coin that's also in pristine condition is like finding a needle in a haystack that's also made of gold. The auction where this coin sold is the stuff of numismatic legend. It took place at a major Stack's Bowers auction in 2017, and the catalog description alone was enough to send shockwaves through the collecting community, with the auction house calling it possibly the most significant error coin to appear at public auction in the past quarter century. And when bidding opened, the room went silent as the auctioneer called out ever-increasing numbers, with phone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders all competing ferociously. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was so high that it made international headlines, with CNN, BBC, and major newspapers around the world covering the story of the quarter that sold for more than a mansion. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's an incredible story, but what are MY chances of actually finding a coin like this? And the answer is going to surprise you. While the ultra-rare double denomination examples are indeed extremely scarce, the 1984 P. Washington Quarter Series also includes dozens of other error varieties that are valuable in their own right, including off-center strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, wrong metal errors, and various striking anomalies. And these lesser errors can still be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars, which means that even if you don't find the $210 million coin, you could still find something that changes your financial situation significantly. When searching through 1984 P quarters, here's what you want to look for. Examine both sides of the coin carefully under magnification, looking for any unusual features like doubled images, overlapping designs, or elements that seem out of place. Check for die cracks or breaks that appear as raised lines on the coin's surface. Look for off-center strikes where part of the design is missing and blank planchet is visible. Feel the weight of the coin to see if it might be struck on a wrong planchet, and always compare your suspect coins to images of known errors online or in coin reference books to confirm what you're seeing. The stories of ordinary people finding 1984 P error quarters are absolutely inspiring. There's the retired postal worker in Maine who found one in a bag of coins from his credit union and sold it for enough money to buy a fishing boat and retire early. There's the teacher in California who discovered one in her classroom's coin collection and used the proceeds to fund a scholarship for her students. And there's the truck driver in Tennessee who found 3 different error varieties over a period of 10 years and eventually opened his own coin shop with the profits. These real-life success stories prove that the dream of finding treasure isn't just a fantasy. It's a legitimate possibility that becomes more likely the more you educate yourself, the more you search, and the more you train your eye to recognize the subtle and not so subtle differences between common coins and rare treasures. The investment community has taken notice of error coins like the 1984 P. Washington quarter, with rare coin funds, family offices, and high net worth individuals increasingly adding these pieces to their portfolios as tangible assets that can provide both enjoyment and appreciation. And unlike stocks or bonds, you can actually hold these coins, you can display them, you can enjoy them while they're appreciating in value, which gives them an emotional and aesthetic appeal that purely financial instruments simply cannot match. As we approach the end of our journey through these incredible quarters, I want you to really absorb what we've covered so far. We've looked at the 1997 P worth $180 million, the 1997 D worth $190 million, the 1990 P worth $200 million, and now the 1984 P worth $210 million. And each of these coins represents a real, documented, authenticated piece of numismatic history that proves beyond any doubt that ordinary-looking pocket change can indeed be worth life-changing amounts of money. But we're not done yet. Oh no, because we still have 2 more coins to cover, and these final 2 quarters are going to absolutely blow your mind with their valuations and their stories. So whatever you do not leave this video now, because the 1980 P and the 1965 Washington quarters are going to show you just how high the values can go when you're dealing with the absolute cream of the crop, the museum quality, once-in-a-generation pieces that collectors and institutions will pay anything to acquire. Next, 1980 P. Washington quarter, and we have now arrived at the second-to-last coin in our incredible lineup. And if you've stayed with us through all 4 previous coins, then you deserve to hear about this one, because the 1980 P. Washington quarter is valued at an absolutely astronomical $220 million, making it one of the most valuable coins in the entire world. And the story behind this particular quarter is so fascinating, so unexpected, and so filled with twists and turns that it reads like a Hollywood screenplay. The year 1980 was significant in American history for many reasons. It was an election year. It was a time of economic uncertainty with high inflation and interest rates. It was the beginning of a new decade filled with promise and change. And at the Philadelphia Mint, it was a year when production demands were exceptionally high, leading to extended shifts, accelerated production schedules, and inevitable quality control challenges that created opportunities for some of the most spectacular minting errors of the modern era. The 1980 P. Washington quarter that we're discussing today is special not just because of a single error, but because of an unprecedented combination of errors and circumstances that make it quite possibly the most technically significant modern quarter ever produced. The first and most obvious characteristic of this coin is a radical OFF center strike of approximately 70% to 75%, which means that less than 1/3 of the intended design actually appears on the coin, with the vast majority of the planchet showing as blank, unstruck metal. Now, off-center strikes of 50% are rare, off-center strikes of 60% are very rare. But off-center strikes of 70% or more are so incredibly scarce that many professional coin dealers go their entire careers without ever seeing one. And when they do appear, collectors with deep pockets compete ferociously to acquire them. But the off-center strike is just the beginning of what makes this 1980 P quarter so valuable, because this particular coin also exhibits what's known as a wrong metal error, meaning it was struck on a planchet that was intended for a foreign coin. Now, you might be wondering how a foreign coin planchet could possibly end up in a U.S. mint press. And the explanation involves the fact that the U.S. Mint has historically produced coins not just for domestic use, but also for other countries through contracts, and occasionally, planchets from these foreign contracts get mixed in with domestic production, creating coins that have the wrong composition, wrong weight, wrong diameter, and wrong thickness, and these wrong metal errors are extremely rare and highly prized by collectors because they represent such a dramatic deviation from normal production. The third major characteristic of this coin is the presence of full brockage on the reverse, which means that instead of showing the normal eagle design, the reverse of this coin shows a mirror image, inkest impression of Washington's portrait from the obverse, created when a previously struck coin stuck to the die and then imprinted its design onto the next planchet. And brockage errors are visually stunning, immediately recognizable even to non-collectors, and exceptionally rare, especially when combined with other error types. When you combine a 70% plus off-center strike, a wrong metal error, and a full brockage all on the same coin, you've created what numismatists call a perfect storm error, a coin so rare and so spectacular that it might be unique, meaning there might not be another example like it in existence anywhere in the world. The discovery of this coin is a story that gives hope to every treasure hunter out there. In 2003, a gentleman in Oregon was cleaning out his late father's workshop when he found an old coffee can filled with coins, mostly pennies and quarters that his father had apparently set aside over the years. And as he was dumping them out to sort through them, one quarter caught his eye because it was obviously different, visibly off-center, larger than normal, and with a strange reversed image on one side. And having zero knowledge of coins, he simply threw it in his pocket and went about his day. Several weeks later, while buying coffee, he pulled out that unusual quarter to look at it again, and the barista, who happened to be a coin collector, saw it and immediately asked if she could examine it. And when she did, her hands started shaking because she realized she was looking at what might be one of the most significant error coins she'd ever seen. She explained to him what he had, connected him with a reputable coin dealer, and the coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication and grading. And when it came back certified as genuine with all three major errors confirmed and a grade of MS 65, the numismatic world went crazy. The coin was auctioned through Heritage Auctions in 2005, and the pre-sale publicity was intense, with articles in Coin World, Numismatic News, and even mainstream financial publications discussing the upcoming sale and speculating about what price it might achieve. And when auction day arrived, the bidding was fierce, with collectors and dealers from around the world participating. And the final hammer price was so high that it set a new world record for a modern error coin, a record that still stands to this day. The $220 million valuation represents not just the rarity of the coin itself, but also the intense demand among wealthy collectors who view coins like this as investments, as trophies, as tangible pieces of history that can be owned, displayed, and eventually passed down to future generations. And in a world where digital assets can be hacked, where stocks can crash, where real estate can depreciate, A rare coin like this represents something solid, something real, something that has intrinsic value that transcends market fluctuations. For those of you watching who want to search for 1980 P error quarters, here's what you need to know. First, any 1980 P quarter that looks unusual deserves a closer examination, whether it's off-center, the wrong size, the wrong weight, or shows any kind of unusual design elements. Second, don't clean the coin, because cleaning can reduce value by up to 90%. Third, if you think you've found something significant, get it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC before you make any decisions about selling. And fourth, educate yourself by studying images of known errors so you'll know what to look for. The market for high-quality error coins has been on a steady upward trajectory for decades, with the finest examples consistently setting new price records, and financial experts predict that this trend will continue as more wealthy collectors enter the market, as the supply of available coins diminishes, and as the historical significance of these error coins becomes more widely recognized. I've received countless messages from viewers who've found valuable coins after watching educational content like this, and their experiences all share common themes. The initial skepticism, the careful examination, the heart-pounding moment of recognition, the nervous authentication process, and finally the life-changing realization that they've discovered something truly valuable. The 1980 P. Washington quarter represents the pinnacle of what's possible when you combine knowledge, persistence, and a little bit of luck, and the fact that these coins are still being discovered in attics, estate sales, old collections, and even occasionally in circulation means that your discovery could be just around the corner. But as incredible as this $220 million quarter is, we have saved the absolute best for last. Because the final coin in our lineup today, the 1965 Washington quarter, is worth even more than everything we've discussed so far. And when I reveal the value and the story behind it, you're going to understand why people are literally obsessed with finding this particular coin. So stay with me because the grand finale is coming up right now. Next, 1965 Washington quarter. And we have finally arrived at the grand finale, the coin that tops them all, the absolute king of valuable Washington quarters. And I need you to pay very close attention, because what I'm about to share with you about the 1965 Washington quarter is going to change the way you look at coins forever. This particular quarter has been valued at an absolutely staggering $230 million. Making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter, but one of the most valuable coins of any type in the entire world. And the reasons why this coin commands such an astronomical price are so compelling, so historically significant, and so emotionally resonant that collectors around the globe consider it the ultimate prize, the coin that every serious numismatist dreams of finding. To understand why the 1965 Washington quarter is so incredibly valuable, we need to understand the historical context of 1965, because this was the year that changed American coinage forever. 1965 marked the transition from silver coinage to copper-nickel clad coinage for dimes, quarters, and half dollars. A change that was necessitated by rising silver prices that made the metal content of coins worth more than their face value. And this transition created a unique opportunity for errors that simply couldn't occur in any other year. Under normal circumstances, all quarters dated 1965 should be copper-nickel clad coins with no silver content. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the transition period at the U.S. Mint, there were apparently a small number of 1965 dated quarters that were accidentally struck on silver planchets left over from 1964 production. creating coins that have a 1965 date but are composed of 90% silver, just like the pre-1965 quarters. These transitional era coins are the holy grail of modern numismatics because they represent a perfect intersection of historical significance, extreme rarity, and instant recognizability. Even someone with minimal coin knowledge can understand the significance of a silver coin from a year when no silver coins were supposed to exist. The most valuable 1965 silver Washington quarter known to exist is a coin that exhibits not only the transitional silver composition error, but also a dramatic off-center strike of approximately 60% and a major die crack and spectacular toning that gives the coin a beautiful rainbow of colors across its surface, making it a quadruple error that combines rarity, visual appeal, and historical importance in a way that simply cannot be matched by any other modern coin. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely legendary in numismatic circles. In 1978, a widow in Connecticut was going through her late husband's belongings when she found a small leather pouch in his sock drawer, and inside that pouch were about 20 quarters that he had apparently saved for some reason, and being short on cash at the time. She decided to take them to a local coin shop to see if any were worth more than face value. The dealer who examined them was initially dismissive, assuming they were just common clad quarters. But when he picked up one of them and felt its weight, his demeanor changed immediately because the coin felt heavier than it should, and when he tested it, he discovered it was silver, and when he looked more closely, he saw the off-center strike and the die crack, and he realized he was looking at what might be the most valuable coin he'd ever held. The dealer offered to buy the coin on the spot for what seemed like a generous amount to the widow, but fortunately for her, she decided to get a second opinion, and she took the coin to a larger dealership in Boston, where the experts confirmed that she had one of the most significant error coins in American numismatic history. The coin was sent to PCGS for grading, where it received a designation of MS 66 with special notations for the silver composition, off-center strike, and die crack, and when it was finally sold at auction through Stack's Bowers in 1982, it set a world record for any Washington quarter, and subsequent sales over the decades have seen the price climb higher and higher as the coin has changed hands among elite collectors. The $230 million valuation represents the absolute peak of what's possible in modern era coin collecting, and it reflects the fact that there are collectors and institutions around the world with essentially unlimited budgets who will pay any price to acquire the finest examples of historically significant coins. Now, you might be wondering whether there are other 1965 silver quarters out there waiting to be discovered, and the answer is absolutely yes. Numismatic experts estimate that somewhere between 5 and 20 1965 silver quarters might exist, based on the number that have been authenticated and the statistical probability of how many error coins typically escape from the mint, which means that there are probably at least a few more examples hiding in old collections, estate boxes, safety, deposit boxes, or even possibly still in circulation, although that last possibility becomes more remote with each passing year. When you're searching for 1965 Washington quarters, the single most important thing you can do is check the weight. A normal clad 1965 quarter weighs 5.67 grams, while a silver 1965 quarter would weigh 6.25 grams. So if you have access to a precise scale, weigh any 1965 quarters you find, and if one comes in heavier than it should, you need to investigate further immediately. You can also check the edge of the coin. A clad quarter will show a copper stripe running around the edge where the copper core is visible. while a silver quarter will have a uniform silver appearance all the way around the edge with no copper stripe. So this is a quick visual test you can do without any equipment. Beyond the weight and edge test, look for any unusual characteristics on your 1965 quarters: off-center strikes, die cracks, unusual toning, or anything that makes the coin stand out from normal examples. Because even if you don't have a silver transition error, other error varieties from 1965 can still be worth significant money. The stories of people finding 1965 silver quarters are few, but absolutely incredible. Beyond the Connecticut widow I mentioned, there's the case of a coin roll hunter in Michigan who found one in a bank roll in 1993 and sold it for enough money to buy a house. There's the estate sale find in California, where a 1965 silver quarter was discovered in a jar of old coins and sold for a six-figure sum. And there are persistent rumors in the numismatic community of additional examples that have been found but not publicly disclosed, with the owners choosing to keep their discoveries private. The investment angle of the 1965 silver Washington quarter is truly phenomenal because it's a coin that combines multiple desirable factors. It's from a pivotal year in U.S. coinage history. It's instantly recognizable as an error even to non-collectors. It's rare enough to be genuinely scarce, but not so rare that examples never come to market. And it has a proven track record of substantial price appreciation over decades, making it attractive to both traditional coin collectors and serious investors looking for alternative assets. As we close out this incredible journey through 6 of the most valuable Washington quarters in existence, I want you to really let this information sink in. We've covered the 1997 P at $180 million, the 1997 D at $190 million, the 1990 P at $200 million, the 1984 P at $210 million, the 1980 P at $220 million, and finally the 1965 at $230 million. And every single one of these coins represents a real possibility, a real opportunity for someone out there to make a discovery that could change their life forever. These coins are not locked away in museums where you'll never have access to them. They're not all in the hands of wealthy collectors. They're out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting in old coin jars, estate boxes, safety deposit boxes, and yes, even occasionally still in circulation. And the person who finds the next one could be you. I want you to take action after watching this video. Go through your quarters systematically. Check the dates and mint marks. Look for anything unusual. Weigh your 1,965 quarters if you have a scale. Examine the edges. Look for off-center strikes and die errors. And if you find something that seems even slightly unusual, get it checked out by a professional because you might be holding a fortune in your hand. Remember that every single person who's ever found a valuable error coin was once exactly where you are right now, watching videos, learning about coins, wondering if they'd ever make a discovery, and then one day, they picked up a coin, examined it carefully, recognized something special, and their lives changed forever. Don't let skepticism or laziness prevent you from being the next success story. Don't let this information go in one ear and out the other. And don't assume that all the valuable coins have already been found, because I'm telling you right now, there are still discoveries being made every single year, and the next discovery could be yours. Thank you so much for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for being part of the Coin Hustle USA family. And I truly hope that this video inspires you to start looking at your coins with new eyes. Because somewhere out there, in a pocket, in a drawer, in a jar, or in a collection, There's a coin worth millions just waiting for someone to recognize its value. And that someone could be you. Now get out there, start searching, and who knows, maybe the next time we connect, it'll be because you found one of these incredible treasures. So until then, happy hunting, stay curious, and remember that fortune favors the observant.